Happy New Year, everybody. I hope everyone enjoyed their holidays. I'm sorry life has kind of gotten in the way of me recording the last couple months, and while I'd like to say things are definitively better now, I have no reason to believe I've actually fixed anything to that point, at least just yet. But the groundwork is definitely in place. However, I'm really happy to see you back here at the shop if this video has found its way to you. I have made some plans to step things up in 2025, and that's what I'm here to talk about right now, along with a personal history lesson that is kind of guiding these decisions. Before I went on this unplanned hiatus, I made a video about Mike Odyssey's coverage of the YouTube algorithm and its current unsavory relationship with the frothing demand for Switch 2 news. Link up in the corner. Now, a lot of it recontextualized things that all of us already know about how YouTube, well, YouTubes. But the thought of all these other Nintendo content creators basically being stuck in a feedback loop where they will lose a significant amount of income for not creating content in a very narrow scope was frightening when I thought about it in the light of me wanting to make this channel my livelihood eventually. Then I big pictured it the way I tend to do with most things my mind lingers on long enough. I just wanted to take a moment to let you all know what all of this means for the channel. Don't worry, if you're already a subscriber or even just a regular viewer, I think you'll like it. This is Little Akiba Games. I'm Patrick. Welcome back to the shop. It's been way too long. Not a day goes by that I don't think about how I'm going to grow the channel. I'm kind of a contradiction. I sincerely want the channel to grow and become my livelihood, but most of the time I talk about Nintendo, I'm not saying what most people looking for Nintendo news and content actually want to hear. My other niches, emulation, retro gaming, import gaming, are also extremely niche. Anyone seriously looking to grow a channel would probably want to do the exact opposite of what I'm doing at any given time, and I've thought about that an awful lot. When Mike Odyssey brought up the degenerate relationship between the YouTube algorithm and Switch 2 hype, I immediately reconsidered my entire way of thinking about that dynamic. There's definitely a meta when it comes to galvanizing fast channel growth by looking at your analytics and seeing what videos perform the best and what parts of those videos resonate the best with viewers. You'll then be able to spark a lot of channel growth simply by letting that data inform your content decisions. The problem with that strategy is obviously that you're letting outside forces tell you what to do with your channel, which is great purely through the lens of growth, but you sacrifice an immense amount of creative freedom in so doing. In the Nintendo YouTube space, this manifested and continues to manifest as content creators having to tie anything they want to talk about to the Switch 2 in some manner or another, or else they lose viewership. Even if they were to spot a snarl between the content they want to make and the corner that the current system is painting them into, they can't course correct because doing so would absolutely annihilate them in the algorithm, and thereby the wallet as things stand now. I've not necessarily run into that exact issue myself, but I've had similar conflicts with past creative endeavors in the direction thereof. Those of you who have known me for quite some time might know me as part of the original panel of the Day Zero update, the Smashpad podcast that just celebrated its 500th episode and its 10th anniversary. In spite of what I'm about to say, sincerely congrats to those guys. I'm really proud of them. That kind of longevity is rare and I hope to see them keep it rolling. Years removed from my departure from the show, I still haven't addressed it publicly, instead waiting and looking for the most appropriate time and place to talk about it, even opting to pass on milestone episodes to avoid potentially bringing the mood down. That being said, I think this applies. Filippo D'Onofrio and I started the Day Zero update toward the end of 2014 as an alternative to the mainstream gaming podcasts at the time, but also informed by the format thereof, particularly the Giant Bombcast. The idea wasn't to talk about big AAA gaming news, but to give gamers a place to go to get away from that talk, to cover the things that weren't being talked about by every other gaming podcast on the internet. Over the initial weeks, Teresa Sammons, Lee Lamb, and Brandon Perkins were added to the panel, and that really locked in the tone and vibe of the show for its initial era. It was very much in the vein of what I try to do with this channel today. Well into that initial run, there was an industry event, I believe an E3, where we had other members of the Smashpad staff join the panel to help weigh in on the news and announcements from the show. Now, I really love doing those shows. It really highlighted the potential the site had, and frankly still has, as a podcasting outlet rather than a more traditional online gaming media site. That's something I have wanted for Smashpad since before the Day Zero update premiered, and more on that in a moment. That week marked the start of a change in tone surrounding the Day Zero update. What started as a guest appearance for a special event was interpreted as an open door policy, and people outside the core panel started inviting themselves to join the weekly show. I started working behind the scenes to maintain control and protect the identity that had been so carefully constructed for the podcast, and for a while it worked. I set up a private chat with the 5 of us, find out who among us would be available for the show, finalize the topics for the week, and then let the other editors fill in any empty seats if there were any. This helped preserve the content focus for the show for quite some time while still being able to have a full panel week over week. Now, it's important to note that the Day Zero update was never intended to be the sole podcast for SmashPad. Obviously, we launched Let's Weekend almost immediately, and there were plans for other podcasts to expand our content selection over time, including a more straightforward mainstream news and discussion show, which I mentioned numerous times over the course of several months that we really needed to get the wheels moving on. Of course, there was also the short-lived Gamers Without Borders podcast that was kind of an attempt to make a Day Zero Update 2.0, and Nostalgia Newsstand that never got off the ground but was supposed to be the Gamer Mag Remembrances segment from Let's Weekend turned into its own show. I wanted SmashPad to become a full-scale gaming podcast network, but I already knew at the time that the news show we desperately needed in the lineup, cannibalizing the Day Zero update, would be a step back in that process. As time passed, life started tying a lot of us up during the scheduled recording time, leaving more open seats on the panel for the rest of the staff, and giving them more leverage in regard to the topics of discussion. I don't remember what the exact topic was. I think it involved Activision. But I was trimming down the list we had for the podcast one week when someone chimed in, "Wait, why is this story being taken off of the agenda? We can't not talk about that." This is where I need to reiterate that the entire point of the Day Zero update was that we could scuttle any mainstream topic that would be getting plenty of coverage elsewhere in favor of stuff that was getting far less coverage, and we historically opted to do exactly that more often than not. We built our entire reputation on doing exactly that. We were basically the podcast equivalent of Gamatsu for a time. It was a great niche and it really served us well. This new dynamic kind of left the podcast in a weird limbo where enough of us were there to at least represent the more niche influences that birthed the show, while it was still undeniably warping into the more straightforward gaming news podcast that I had also been saying SmashPad needed. And what saddens me is that we really could have done both. For those of you who were listening around this time, it was pretty evident that I was becoming less and less engaged week after week. Phil eventually left the show to pursue his IT certifications, and I just need to say I'm really proud of him for going in that direction because he's always had the knowledge and the talent to do that. I think it was a fantastic move for him. A couple months later, I left the show to let it complete its transformation into SmashPad's general news podcast and went on to start laying the groundwork for my return to YouTube and what would eventually become Little Akiba Games. I say all of this because the more I think about Mike Odyssey's description of how the YouTube algorithm treats big Nintendo channels, the more I see parallels to how I felt about the podcast in my last few months on it. I've basically been preoccupied with how to grow my channel, and the thought of trying to steer into the algorithm has crossed my mind, but I would never want to do it if it would result in me making videos that I'm just not into making. I've talked before about having the luxury to act more freely because the channel is not currently my livelihood, and that feels like more of a blessing every day. I'll grow much more slowly by cooking to taste and making only the content that I want to make, that I feel is on brand for Little Akiba Games, but I also feel like it will insulate me from situations like the larger Nintendo channels are going through right now because the people who would leave over me not hyperfixating on a single certain topic were never here to begin with and likely never will be. I have a brand that I need to stay on, but that covers a good scope and would never preclude me from making the videos that feel right in the moment. I'm also cognizant of the fact that this is going to be a very long road to YouTube monetization and hopefully making this a channel that I can live off of someday, so I'm going to continue looking for alternate ways to monetize my content because only when I have the free time that would come from replacing my 8 to 5 with this will I really have the freedom to produce content at the rate and quality that I want to. Now, I've had the tip jar for quite some time now over at Coffee, and I've also added a commission option where you can request topics for the channel, after talking with me briefly to make sure that it's on brand and something that I could actually give you your money's worth on, since obviously I'm not trying to scam anybody. In addition to this, I'm also going to be streaming again over on Twitch at twitch.tv/LittleAkibaGames, where I'm already affiliated. I've had that channel shut down for quite some time, but I'm going to get active over there again effective immediately, mostly doing emulation and retro achievement stuff. If you're at all interested in that, and I have to imagine you are since you're on this channel right now, feel free to drop a follow and stop by. This should also be a good source for clips, which is going to help me get content uploaded over here when I don't have anything to cover in the form of the usual recorded op-ed content that I've been posting, as that's obviously been something I've struggled with when the news cycle hasn't exactly been generous. Finally, for everything that I've said about staying on brand and knowing what brings people here, I have run into a personal conflict where I occasionally find myself playing some more mainstream or more modern stuff that doesn't quite mesh with the Little Akiba Games brand. And being the way I am, I keep feeling like any time I spend not working on content is time I should be spending working on content. It's not good, it's not healthy, it's just the way I'm wired. So I'm going to be launching another brand entirely separate from Little Akiba Games in the very near future, just so that I can enjoy myself, maybe reacting to YouTube videos or playing Baldur's Gate 3 or Forza Motorsport or Marvel Rivals or something like that with my friends, and so on, without feeling guilty about it. I just want to be clear, this channel isn't going away. The shop has really become my happy place, my sanctuary in the year plus that I've had it, and I would never dream of winding it down. This is just something that I have to do to manage myself better. Because it's going to be an entirely separate brand, this is probably the only time I'm ever going to talk about it on this channel, but I feel like including it here was necessary from a big picture perspective. If anything, it will probably put me in a better headspace to work on this channel as well. I had big plans for 2024, and it was definitely undermined by my own inconsistency and generally being a head case. And I'm really thankful for those of you who are still here to follow the channel and hang out at the shop to talk games. I can't promise that I'll finally have my shit together in 2025, but what I do have is a plan that goes beyond videos I want to make this year. And that's more than I had to go on 365 days ago. I look forward to putting it into action, and I hope you're looking forward to seeing it. As always, if you should feel so inclined, please like, comment, share, and especially subscribe with the notification bell set to all, so that you don't miss anything and to let YouTube know you like what's going on over here. And really do that with all of your favorite channels, whether mine is one of them or not. The algorithm isn't algorithming very well these days, and YouTube needs all the help it can get to form the feed that you want to have. Again, Happy New Year, everybody. I hope to see you back here next time at Little Akiba Games.